Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups, Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today.
This call is being recorded.
Rafael. Hello?
Hey, this is Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so great. Well, how are you today?
I'm very good. It's a beautiful morning, and I'm settling in for a day of work, as I typically do.
Nice. Well, yeah. So I'm calling you from Floyd, Virginia, in the Roanoke area, Valley area, and if I remember, your spot is the Baltimore area. Is that where you are?
Actually, I'm at my wife's house in Washington, D.C., but I live in Baltimore.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. Well, I think it's fun to talk about where we're connecting from, not to disclose your location per se, but yeah, thank you for sharing. And
Sure.
So that was pretty nifty that we met on the train. I thank you so much for reaching out to me because that was pretty cute. I was on a Zoom call or a meeting and took a chance to I probably shouldn't have been speaking out loud on a Zoom call on the train, but I kind of threw a sentence or two in there for the class conversation, and you overheard me. And so I have a copy of your book that you gifted me here with me, and I've been hanging out with it. It's on my coffee table workstation area. And
cool.
Yeah, so and I happened to kind of flip through a couple of sections while we were on the train, and it was in the quiet in our car, so I said, well, I don't think I would like to interview you now, but that would be rude to the other passengers. So this is cool. Thank you for this.
It's my pleasure. I had heard you use the magical word writer, and that's what got my attention.
Yeah, and as much as I can pull together just from browsing, I can't help but bounce around from your website and some links that I've gotten from email, and we've connected a teeny weensy bit on social. I noticed that you have a page started on Substack, and I have friends there too. But some of the things that I was able to gather is that there's a bookstore in your family. You have a lot of, or that your family is close to. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, you're referring to Macon Street Books, which is the name of a company I have for all of my writing, all of my projects, including a cassette of gospel music that I'm producing. There is no physical bookstore. I give away books, I sell books, but Macon Street Books is the umbrella phrase for everything I do in the world of literature and photography.
Okay, cool. So tell me a little bit about this book that you gave me, because it feels like these stories it's a collection of short stories. I don't know if that's the right way to describe the book, but it's historical for me, right? Because it feels like you are sharing with me a collection of stories from you chose to compile these together. It's not a new work, but it became something that you published. Are these short stories released before elsewhere?
They are only the first 3 stories are technically short stories, meaning that they're short fiction. The rest are newspaper stories that I published in the Baltimore Sun, where I was a reporter for about 23 years. I landed on the city desk at around the age of 20, and I left the Baltimore Sun 20 years later. So they are all feature stories that I published in my hometown newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, basically from 1980 all the way to when I left the paper in 2001.
Okay. Making some notes here. Yeah, and so the title of the book is Storyteller, Rafael Alvarez. And it's a picture of you. The cover is a really nice picture, and you handed me this sticker that you also said you like to give out to people. You gave me. There were actually 2 that you gave me. I don't know if you knew that, but there was one in the book, and you handed me one, and it says Ralphie's Bookmobile.
Yeah, that's my Patreon account, and which I have, I don't know, maybe 105 subscribers. And so at a very young age, I became obsessed with the United States Postal Service. I really got into writing away for things, and it started in the 4th grade when our teacher had us write to different embassies and say we were studying their country, and the country I was assigned was Norway. And they sent me a can of sardines and a beautiful map. And my gosh, in the 4th grade, it was 1967, which some of your listeners may remember as the Summer of Love, when the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper. And I was so taken with this cool stuff they sent me. You know, I was a kid that loved books and libraries and maps and stuff like that, that I, on my own, just started writing to different companies, telling them, you know, actually it was a bit of a fib, telling them that I was studying, you know, Tootsie Rolls or and all these companies would send me stuff, and I was just enamored of this idea that you could send a little letter, you know, and I always liked writing and you know, putting words on paper. You could send a little letter and you'd get stuff back.
Are you an executive or team leader in the Roanoke Valley, Virginia area? Hi, my name's Elizabeth Walker. I'm inviting you to a special one-day-only event at the Downtown Jefferson Center here in Roanoke, Virginia, a leadership and comedy experience called The Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher, author and stand-up comedian. Visit the QR code in the ad and visit walkerconsultingworkshops.com. Early bird pricing now through September 30th. Don't miss out.
And that carried on to my children, who are now all adults, and I send them postcards and letters and things I clip out of the paper, and I take a lot of photos with disposable cameras, and when it comes back, I put a stamp on it and send it to the kids. And the children said that their friends were envious because they called it real mail, you know, real mail in the internet age. And I would do this with friends and family and even strangers. And then it occurred to me that maybe I could start a little business out of quote unquote real mail. And so my Patreon account, which is Ralphie's Bookmobile, patreon.com/Rafael Alvarez Baltimore, lists about 10 or 12 different things you can subscribe to. My stories, my photography, peeks into my journals that I've kept for 40 years. And the most popular by far is the real mail. So for $5, I send people a handwritten postcard every month, and it would be like Real Mail, August 2024. And some people have been subscribing to the Real Mail for like 2 or 3 years. And once they hang in there and they subscribe for that long, I start sending them other things like books and all kinds of stuff. Like I'm now emptying out my parents' house. You know, they've both passed away, and we're finding all kinds of stuff, Christmas ornaments and little angels. And I've started to mail out stuff from my parents' house that nobody wanted. And I just think in 2024, people are tickled to go to their mailbox and find something that's not either junk or a bill.
Right. Wow.
And so that's the sticker I gave you, with the website at the bottom.
Okay, well, I'm using it as a bookmark.
Good.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so you also are sharing journal writings and things with your audience, and is that a separate type of share, a separate type of subscription? How do you fit that kind of share into your audience?
Well, I'm always writing, Elizabeth. If you want to know what I'm doing on any given day, beginning, after I wake up and I say my prayers, my new book is about the rosary, which is Catholic prayer beads. I'm always, after I say my prayers, I get a cup of coffee, and I write from about, 7:30 till about 2. And then and by writing, I mean, I'm not constantly creating every minute. Sometimes I'm interviewing people. Sometimes I'm editing. Sometimes I'm chasing editors for payment of stories that have already appeared. Mm-hmm. And then at around 2 or whatever, I break for lunch, and then I take a nap for a couple hours. Then I wake up, I brew another pot of coffee, and I go back to the keyboard. And in the evening, you will find me listening to my favorite baseball team, the Baltimore Orioles, on the radio, because if it's on the radio, I can do other things at the same time. So I'm listening to baseball on the radio, I'm sipping coffee, and I am, I am grinding away at all things Macon Street Books, which includes fiction, memoir, nonfiction books, sending people postcards, and then chasing people. Like right now, I'm trying to get an interview with Frank Zappa's daughter, Moon Zappa, who has just released a memoir of growing up in a very unconventional household. And, getting a hold of her publicist or whatever, that might take like 20 minutes, and then I'll go back to whatever I happen to be writing at the time. Well, now, do you have any advice for keeping yourself focused when you have to stop your day to chase down a phone call and then you get back to writing? Have you built a good habit for that? Well, I learned to write. I didn't go to an MFA program, whatever. I have an English degree from a Jesuit college in Baltimore, but I literally learned to write on the city desk of the Baltimore Sun, which at one time was a major American newspaper. And, you don't have the luxury of not being disciplined when you're working on the city desk of a real newspaper. There's no, first of all, I love it. It's what I always wanted to do from a very young age. But, there's no such thing as writer's block when you're on deadline for a story about, a homicide or a 3-alarm fire or a 5-car fatal accident. No, I'm very focused, and it's from years and years of discipline. It's almost become muscle memory, And it's also from the fact that Elizabeth, this is something that your listeners may be able to relate to. I work all day, every day, so I don't have to have a job. I do not want. I don't want colleagues. I don't want a boss. I don't want the retreat where we tell each other how much we love each other when it's really all bullshit. I don't want any corporate America crap. I want to be left alone to do my work and put stories out into the universe. And I've done it long enough that it brings me enough money to sustain myself.
Well, it's your photography comes through. The visual experience of just perusing through your work is in and of itself I find it's soothing, and it's like a little trip through pieces, really. And you include a lot of. I'm very conscious of time when I'm looking through your work and because of the way that you put certain photos, memories of family members front and center, and it's very obvious to me, or at least I read a lot into how important honoring people in your life with photographs is right there on your business page, right? So,
yes, I come from a very old school, traditional working class family from East Baltimore. I live in the house where my father grew up. My grandfather came here from Spain in the 1920s. He left a very big mark on the family. My stories all evolve or all descend from family, going down to the kitchen table where I had every Sunday spaghetti dinner of my life growing up, and would spend the weekend with my Italian grandmother, and she would roll out the dough, and then I'd walk her to mass down at the end of the block. And these are the things that are most important to me. There's a tradition of doing so. My work doesn't fit into any particular genre, but you could find parallels to my work with people like, now I'm going to forget his name, Joseph Mitchell, the famous New Yorker writer, whose anthology is called Up in the Old Hotel. And one of the first interviews I did as a very young reporter, I was just 20 years old, it became my first byline in the Sun, was with Studs Terkel, who took oral histories of everyday people. I like to find the extraordinary lives of ordinary people, and I come from factory workers, tugboat workers, brewery workers, shipyard workers, and the poet Philip Larkin, also of Detroit, was the poet laureate of the assembly line. Those are the things that appeal most to me.
I love that. I really do love that. One of the stories that I landed on first, actually still on the train sitting across the aisle from you, is Somewhere in the City, a Diary Waits to be Found.
Oh, yeah.
So when we were talking, or when we were just kind of introducing ourselves and saying hi for a couple of minutes on the train, and then I went to this story, it was kind of, this is exactly, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised to open your book and find that it was a collection of short stories, because I have been recently thinking to myself how I used to really enjoy reading, I don't pick up books randomly as much as I used to, and what I used to enjoy the most were people who could, like yourself, put together short stories in a collection like this. And then after my, the Zoom call on the train with some folks, I was talking about writing, and in this particular class of mine of fellow entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and of the like, being able to publish something or write a book or put a collection together of your own interest is easier said than done, and something that we contemplate on a lot as a class, as far as what is the value of saying you should or have to do something in order to be credible, right? And so immediately when I was flipping through your book, you had said some things to me. I told you I was a podcaster, and you made a joke about, podcasting and writing. It's better than working, right? And a minute ago, you just said to me how you work all day long, so you don't have to have a job. And so, but when you're in this thought process of producing your own work, being able to put something together as a product for your audience is like seemingly one of the hardest things to do. And you're a writer, and that's what you do. So you have a lifelong experience of being able to share experiences with somebody like me who kind of looks at you with awe. Like, how do you, harness your creative vision all the time? And you kind of already answered the question a little bit by sharing that you have a lot of discipline inherently, and also because of your work at the paper. So I'm going on and on and on, telling you a little bit of my perception of you and where we met and all that. But, I'm fascinated by your maybe also career changes a little bit. Did you tell me that after writing for the paper, you went on to do something else somewhere else for a little while, a long while maybe?
First of all, about getting your work out there and getting known or whatever, I'm not down with this idea of branding. So many people who want to be artists put 80% of their time into branding and only 20% of their time into the work. And to me, that's just, like smoke and mirrors. And I meet people all the time, they're already 50 years old and they're going to write a novel. Like, really? But not today. I'll get to it. We're going on a 3-day vacation to a cabin, and I'll get it done there. My biggest advice to people, even if they are 50, I've just recently had a very wonderful experience tutoring a man in his 60s. And my big advice is 20 minutes a day, every day. And then it's like push-ups. If you do 10 push-ups a day, every day, one day you're going to be able to do 15 push-ups. I can't tell you when that day is going to come, but I promise you it will. Everything I've ever done has been geared towards, being a successful writer. Not a famous writer, but a published author. So when I left the Sun, after I was there for 23 years, I started in the circulation department, and then I went to the sports department as a kid. Just compiling what we used to call agate, which is small print, small type, and for the box scores and the horse races and stuff like that. And after 20-some years, I'd spent half my life there. I started when I was 19, and I left when I was 41. Also, Elizabeth, they were paying us to quit. The writing was on the wall that newspapers were collapsing. And it was a union paper, and each buyout was less lucrative than the one before, and the buyouts kept coming. So I'm like, man, I better get one of these, because I could see which way the train was moving. And so I took a job on a ship, because in my mind, and I tell young people this today, do not spend $200,000 on some MFA program that's going to turn out another generation of writers that can't find work, and sit around in a circle and have people who maybe are not even as talented as you tell you why your story doesn't work. And I encourage them to do, and there's no joke at all, Elizabeth. I'm dead serious. Get a job with the circus. Get a job in a restaurant. Get a job in an emergency room. You can get an entry-level job in many places without any technical training. Get a job where you learn how something is done. The great Flannery O'Connor said, always talked about her stories being constructed, her stories being built. And to build a story, you need material. You need lumber. You need screws. You need bricks. You need mortar. So go do something, and, instead of spending the $200,000 on an MFA, you're still ahead of the game if you're only getting paid minimum wage to shovel out stables on a horse farm. Learn about horses. People love horses. Blah, 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 blah. So I come from a seafaring family. My grandfather came to America on a ship. My father left home at 17 to sail around the world in the engine room and became a chief engineer on tugboats in Baltimore. When other kids went to work with their fathers, they went to offices. When I went to work with my father, age 8, 9, 10 years old, I'm riding around the Baltimore harbor on a tugboat. It was unbelievably wonderful.
Are you a LinkedIn user? If you are, you can join me for LinkedIn Live Audio with Elizabeth every week, usually on Mondays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I will have a LinkedIn Live Audio where we talk about podcasting for executives who speak and podcasting for team leaders who speak. These are the themes that are currently running. If that sounds like something you're interested, visit me, Elizabeth Walker at Work, on my LinkedIn profile.
And in high school, when I was, obsessed, as many young wannabe male writers are, with Hemingway and, the romance of the sea and all that, I persuaded my father to get me a job on a ship when I was 18 years old. And I didn't know anything about working on ships. I'm not a seafarer, but I had a notebook in my back pocket at all times. And when something interesting would occur, or I learned how to tie a line or whatever, I would excuse myself and hide behind a post or something and scribble it down and put it back in my pocket. On that trip, and the library is the greatest university in the world. Frank Zappa said, if you want to get laid, go to college. If you want to get an education, go to the library.
Right.
So on that trip at the age of 18, literally the other crew members were going to brothels or what, I don't know. I never went. I don't even, I doubt it looked like an Old West saloon, but we were in Puerto Rico and New Orleans, and I would go to the library and I'd meet girls there, it was more fun than whatever the hell they were doing. But I got a copy of David Copperfield by the great Dickens. And I assigned it to myself. I read it to learn as best I was able to discern about structure. Just like Flannery O'Connor, how do you put a story together? And because I knew that Dickens published many of his books in serialized form, which meant they were chunks, just like the way you said that you like short stories and small bits of nonfiction essays and stuff like that. And I knew that if he published them in serial form, that the end of each story would somehow magically link to the beginning of the next one. And after my second summer at sea, and I used that money to pay for my college education, I landed a job at the Sun in the circulation department, and then I stayed at the newspaper for the next 23 years. When they were paying us to quit, I knew two things. I had 3 kids in private school, I think 2 in college, 1 in private high school. And I knew that it was not fair for me to deny them their middle-class birthright that I enjoyed because of some stupid whim their father had to go to sea. But the union, the Seafarers Union, provided really, really good benefits, health insurance, a little pension or whatever. And my idea was, well, I can always chase money. You can't chase health benefits. You either, you got to sell your soul some kind of way to get good benefits. So I went back to sea, and I continued to write. And I did that for 2 years. And when I was on my, I think my 3rd ship in my early 40s, my old newspaper colleague, David Simon, had created an HBO show called The Wire, and he invited me to be a staff member for the first couple of seasons. And now I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. And I spent the next 7 or 8 years writing for television.
I love The Wire. It's so good. I love it. Did you have fun with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got to write about my favorite city. I got to create the second season of The Wire, as a lot of people know, is set on the Baltimore waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
So having grown up the son of a tugboat guy, which I think is why I was offered the job, I created a lot of those characters based on my father's drinking buddies that I knew when I was a little kid growing up, and they would go crabbing and fishing, and it was a wonderful childhood.
Do you have any favorite scenes?
Yeah, I have one particular favorite scene that you'd have to be a Baltimorean, and you'd have to be looking very, very careful to acknowledge or to even catch as it zips by. There's a scene where Frank Sabatka, whose name I picked out of a Baltimore cemetery. Cemeteries, for the folks listening that are in the writing game, are great places to find names for fictional characters. Frank Sabatka is the union boss, and he is paying off a lobbyist to get the harbor dredged so that bigger ships can come in. And things aren't going so well. And the lobbyist has to tell him that, it didn't pass this legislative session, maybe next one, you will, blah, blah, blah. And Frank Sabatka hands him a shoebox filled with money and says, try them on, Brucey. I think they're your size. And when you take the lid off, it's stacks of $100 bills. So the lobbyist leaves, and Frank Sabatka is livid. And he takes a dart and swivels in his chair and slams it at the dartboard. And it's a bullseye right in the face of Robert Irsay. Now, NFL fans listening of a certain age will know that Robert Irsay moved the Baltimore Colts to Indianapolis in 1984 and immediately became public enemy number 1 in Baltimore, to the point where, it's been 40 years and he's still hated. He's dead and he's still hated. His son owns the team and his son is hated. People go to Indianapolis just to give the Colts stadium the finger. And it's what, people that are into film know that to be like an Easter egg. You hide little Easter eggs that have very minimal to do with the plot or the overall picture, but they're pleasing to both the writer and maybe to certain people that catch it. So my favorite scene is when Sabatka throws a dart and it hits Robert Irsay right in the face.
That's a great one. I'm so glad you were able to conjure that up on cue. Thank you. Yeah, binged The Wire for sure. I don't know if I was watching it very, it not in step with when it was released, but when I found it, I definitely binged it, as they say.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I don't know how much time I've taken so far of yours. I was looking at my notes, making sure. I have to say, so you have Macon Street Books is where we can find you, where I can keep up with you.
Yes, MaconStreetBooks.com. And Macon Street Books, all one word.com. Do you tell people to go to like your bio or whatever to find more information?
Yes.
So I will respond to anyone that wants to ask me a question about writing or interested in my books. If somehow you could let your listeners know about my email, I really love meeting readers.
Okay, so I can email you, and you want me to be able to contact you directly.
Anyone can contact me directly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Speaking on behalf of everyone listening. Yes. So what is your contact for readers to get in touch with you?
Okay. I'm going to spell it because it's a little funky. It's the title of one of my books. The
Cool.
email is ORLO dot L as in Larry, E as in Edna, I as in Ida, N as in Nancy, I as in Ida, at gmail.com. Orlo.Lenny, Leini, at gmail.com.
ORLO.LEINI at gmail.com.
That is correct.
Awesome. Well, this is the first interview that you and I have had, and I hope to have another one with you, maybe in person. I would like to get back on the train and head in your direction again and do a little tour of interviews, so maybe that would be a good excuse to have another interview.
If you want to come to Baltimore, I'll take you to the best crab cake you've ever had in your life.
I love crab cakes.
Good. Well, this has been very fortuitous.
Yes. So I will save this email address for the show notes so people can read it and click on it, and then you'll have an email and a copy for me in all of the places that you can listen to this interview, Rafael. And thank you so much for visiting with me today on this recording.
You're welcome, Elizabeth. Take care, hon, and keep writing.
All right. I love it. I appreciate it. Talk with you very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.